In this video, I'm going to teach you how to learn to say no without feeling guilty, because not being able to say no is having a massive negative impact in your business. So stay tuned. First, I'm going to uncover how setting boundaries plays a key role to the success of your business. And then I'm going to reveal how this is dragging your business down. Then I'm going to show you 2 strategies that will take the pressure off of saying no. And by the end of this video, you'll have the tools and the strategies to say no guilt-free with ease. So let's dive in. One of the keys to success is setting really clear boundaries by learning how to say no, because success and money love boundaries. They absolutely love boundaries. So being masterful at being able to claim no for yourself guilt-free is key. Now, everything you say yes to that isn't really serving you and your highest good and your business is saying no to something that is. And what do I mean by that? There's only so much time in a day, and there's only so much energy that you have for your business. And the more that you are saying no to things that aren't really serving you, the more it precludes you from saying yes to the things that can. So this is just one way I'm showing you in how no serves success and money. Every moment, we're either making a choice that is moving us closer to what we want or moving us further away from what we want. And this is so key. So you have to realize every choice you're making in every minute of the day is either moving you away from what you want or closer to what you want. And by not saying no when you're doing things that you don't really want to be doing or that aren't even in your highest good to do, you are moving further away from what you want rather than moving towards it. So how do you know? First of all, you have to get clear on what your values are, what's really important to you, right? And then why is it important? Because I cannot tell you how many people think that sacrificing themselves for others is important, because this is what they've been raised to believe, but it is not true at all, right? That is not actually putting yourself first. That's putting somebody else before you. And when you're putting somebody else before what's actually in your highest good, not what your ego mind thinks is in your highest good, but what it actually is in your highest good, when you put people before you, you are basically saying, I'm okay to go last, right? And that means what I want is okay to go last as well. And we want to shift that by being able to say no in a loving and constructive way so that you are putting yourself first. Now, most people don't say no because they're conflict avoidant. They're afraid that it's going to create conflict in their relationship. And so they want to avoid the conflict as a result. But what it does create instead is resentment. Right? Because if you're doing a whole bunch of things you don't really want to be doing, and if you feel like you're giving, and nobody's giving to you in return, what do you feel as a result of that? You feel resentful, right? You feel angry, you feel pissed off of why am I giving this out so much and I'm not getting back in return? And I can tell you how many of my clients experience this, where they're such massive givers, right? And those are the kinds of clients that I tend to attract because they're heart-centered. They really want to do great things in the world and shift the world, but they haven't learned how to put themselves first. And they're always saying yes to things because they think it makes them a better person. And they have this values conflict, because if saying no makes me a bad person and I really want to be a good person, then I have to say yes. But if I say yes, then what that means is that I don't get to focus on my business the way that I want to. So how is that really being helpful at all? And again, as I said, all it does is breed anger and resentment. One of the keys to realize is how many times in your life people actually say no and how many times you say no and it's really okay. Right? So when we normalize the idea of saying no, of in our daily life how many times people say no, and there's no real major consequence as a result of saying no. So you start to normalize it and you get okay with it, and you realize how to be able to say it then in a more and I'm not going to say it's acceptable to the person, but it's in a way that causes the least amount of kick up or pushback as a result. So typically people say don't want to say no because they're people pleasers, right? And when you're a people pleaser in your business, it's stopping you from creating the results you want. You're always worried about what other people are going to think about you, how they're going to feel. And rather than focusing on the vision and the mission that you have and moving forward, it ends up being incredibly distracting and moving you off I'm going to say the path that you're on, right? When we people please, when we're putting other people first, it's like we jump onto other people's paths and try to take their stuff on. And like now we're carrying our stuff and their stuff, right? So now it feels like massive heavy lifting. And it's like, no wonder I'm having this issue in my business. So the key is to really understand that and be able to shift it so that you stop people pleasing. Ultimately, who you really want to please is yourself. That's who you really want to please. And so you understand, what is it that really makes me feel good about me, and really building on that. It's also key to understand that other people aren't your responsibility. Now, if you have young kids, they are your responsibility in certain ways. They're your, like really young kids, yes. But other kids, they may be your responsibility to feed. Maybe companion animals, pets, they're your responsibility to feed. But the way you go about it is, you can be so creative. You can have your kids feed your pets, for example, right? You can have your kids help make out dinner. You can batch cook. You can order in. Like, there are so many ways to do this by understanding, okay, feeding your kids might be your responsibility, but your kids themselves are not actually your responsibility. And I know that's pretty controversial because we've been raised to believe that our kids are responsibility for the rest of our lives, but they're not. Everyone is responsible for themselves. Now, up until 2 years old, that's not really true, but everyone is 100% responsible for themselves. And when we can nurture ourselves and be our own best version of ourselves, we're actually teaching everyone else. We're standing as a model for everyone else to step into their best version of themselves too. Now, here's the key to understand also. You train people how to treat you. So if you don't like how people are treating you, you've trained them that that's okay to treat you that way. And so the key is, by learning how to say no with grace and in a loving way, you can retrain people how to treat you. Like, everybody's retrainable, right? You can train. There may be some pushback in the beginning because they're accustomed. I have so many clients who have such massive expectations of themselves, and they've allowed other people to have massive expectations of them as well. And when they start putting up those boundaries and saying no, they do get a little pushback, but they learn how to do it. When you get out of the awkward stage of learning how to say no, then you realize you can actually do it really easily. I'm told by a lot of people that I'm pretty bold in my ability to do it. And it's only because I care enough about the other person and I care enough about myself to set really clear boundaries around myself so I can have the lifestyle that I want. Now, as I've been saying, it will all depend on how you say it. I like to say, like, I really love you and I would like to help you, but I really can't say yes to that now, or something to that effect. Now, depending on who I'm talking to, that may differ, as opposed to just, no, stop asking me, right? Sometimes people will say that, and that's okay if you have to say it like that. Like, I'd rather have you say no like that than not say no at all. But there is a way to say it with grace. And once you start realizing that it's okay to do it, that it's like, you're not going to lose a relationship. To be honest, if you lost a relationship by saying no, how valuable was the relationship to you in the first place, right? Most relationships you're not going to lose by saying no, unless they're just a taker. And then again, it's not worth having that relationship in the first place. So I talk a lot about how to set clear boundaries, on how to remove the limiting beliefs that make you a people pleaser in the first place in all my videos, and how to cruise in flow to be able to thrive in your business. So make sure you like and subscribe so that you stay up to date on these videos, because I'm going to offer you tons of valuable content. One strategy to use is to buy time. Right? Delay answering, as opposed to being in a triggered state. Oftentimes people ask us something and we're like, oh my God, I have to say no, or this doesn't feel good, but how do I say it? And they go into a little bit of freak out mode and they're not sure how to do it. So when you buy time, what it allows is to take that pressure off. Now, you don't want to buy too much time, because if you're in kind of a little bit of freak out mode about saying no, then the longer you elongate that time, the more you have to sustain that energy. But what you want to do is really gain clarity on how you're going to say no. Okay, does this fit my values? Am I trying to people please this person? Am I afraid that they're not going to like me if I say no? Like, asking yourself this question, how can I say no in a way that they're going to be able to hear it? How can I say no even if they can't hear it in a way that I can be clear about it and take a stand for myself? Because the more that you take a stand for you, the more that success and money will be knocking on your door. Now, this last strategy is to stick to your guns and be a broken record. They ask you once, you say no. They ask you again. Now, if you say yes, like years ago, I was a psychology major, and in doing behavioral modification, I was training rats to roll over, right? If you give the rat a pellet every single time it tries to roll over, then you can break that behavior very quickly. If you do it intermittently, it's really hard to break that behavior, right? People are trained that, okay, if I ask enough times, they'll finally say yes. So you have to be consistent at it. If they ask again, the answer's still no. I really love you and I'd really need to do this. If they ask again, can you please stop asking, because the answer is still no. Be the broken record. Keep saying no. And it will get easier and easier the more that you do it. And you might even gamify it and find playful ways to be able to say no that don't feel so serious and lighten up the whole situation. Everybody will appreciate it as a result. And it will feel so much better for you to be able to put a stake in the ground for yourself and your boundaries. Now, my client Brenda, when Brenda first started working with me, she was such a people pleaser. She really had difficulty saying no. And she was always putting people first. She was always putting people before her. And it became a real problem. When she started learning how to put herself first, she started realizing how many things she said no to that she was steamrolled over because she didn't have healthy boundaries, and how it was impacting her business because of it, right? Everything, including her business, was steamrolling her because she wasn't taking a stand for herself. And when she learned how to take a stand for herself, not only did massive conflict disappear from her home life, but it allowed her to be in her business in a way that actually really felt good for her, rather than feeling constantly overwhelming. It just felt like this heavy weight on her shoulders, and it stopped feeling like that. And she was able to create so much more spaciousness in it. And it's possible for you too. Part of learning to say no easily is learning how to set healthy boundaries. And in this upcoming video, I'm going to be teaching you how to set really clear and loving boundaries. So make sure you tune into that, because money and success love boundaries. Thanks, I'm Alaina, and I'll see you in the next video.